Have you heard about this personal and professional podcast?
Coaching in Session with your host, Michael Rearden.
I have talked about this quite a bit on the podcast when it comes to the power and the significance of presence. But today we're going to be looking at it in a different light. We're going to be not only understanding and learning about what it is, looking at some of the personal issues that you might be dealing with in your own life, and then some techniques and some skills that you can utilize to put tools in your toolbox to make sure that you are living more present. Now, when I say the present moment, what does that mean for you? Some people think how you're currently feeling. Maybe it's looking at all of the problems that you have. Maybe you're having relationship problems, or you're having career problems, or money problems, or family problems, whatever it be, right? You have something that's causing your attention to be taken away from the moment, typically. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because even the bad moments, the moments that kind of take us away from our joy, can be an eye-opening experience. Because if you think about your circumstance, for example, you probably have some type of electrical device or a car or something to listen to this podcast. It's not something that all of a sudden you're just listening to this podcast. You have something that someone else in this world doesn't have the ability to have. They don't have the power, maybe. They don't have the money or the funds to get the devices. Maybe they just don't have internet access. And it might seem so far out for people who are living with this every day in their lives, because guess what? If you are living in a nice home with heat and cooling and food in your fridge, yes, there's going to be times when you're just going to kind of look at your world problems saying, oh my God, I wish I had some more money. Oh my God, I wish I didn't have to deal with my kids and them not behaving. Oh my goodness, my partner doesn't understand me. And we can go down the list of all these little problems that are significant problems for us, of course. But there's other people in the world who are very much well below your status in the sense of the living situation that they're currently in. Maybe they do not have a home with heating and cooling. Maybe they're all alone outside, maybe with no security. They have no one. They're all alone. And they're trying to figure out where they're going to get their next meal. And it might seem like, well, that is not my problem. That's their problem. And rightfully so. You're not necessarily here to save everybody. I don't expect you to be a hero and go out and protect all the people who need protecting or save all the people who need to be saving. There comes a power when a person gets up on their own accord, with their own power. Sometimes some help is always appreciated. One of the reasons why my coaching is effective is because I don't necessarily do everything for the client. I say, this is what we have to do. Now, if we don't do it, right, if they don't do it, I'm not going to say, well, the reason you're not successful is because you're not doing it. Well, of course, we can put one and two together and come out. What I do is very much like a teacher, and this is from my teaching background, is there's a hole right now. Somewhere there's a divide between what we want and what we're doing. Because if you're not doing what you have to do to get what you want, there's something stopping you. Maybe the task is too big. Maybe it's too difficult. It's beyond your skill level. And there's nothing wrong with not being ready for the next step. I can only think, what would happen if you keep taking steps and you're not ready? Maybe you can get greatness, right? Maybe it can happen. It does happen sometimes. But oftentimes you prepare for the win. Think of an NBA player. They go to practice. They practice hours, 2-3 times a day, going to the gym 2-3 times a day sometimes. This doesn't happen because they say, I'm just going to go home, stay in the sofa, and I'm just going to, check out. When it's game time, I'm going to go to the game and I'm going to play. Win or lose, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to get paid, right? And that's what happens, right? They get paid whether they win or they lose. Of course, they can get more endorsement deals and stuff if they win all the way into finals and they get the rings. But some people are just content where they are. Now, they can be looking at their future. Sure. Right. They can be looking at something that happened in the past. Maybe they lost something or someone, and that can cause them to be disconnected. Regardless of the situation, sports as the example, people just don't wait for things to happen. They take action in the time they have right now. They go to practice. They go to the gym. They ask coach, do they, need to improve something? They get life coaches. They get personal trainers. They get chefs. All of these things help to build the person in their mind. But yet today we are so caught up in our own busy day. I'm so busy. One of the things my wife and I don't say to each other is we're busy. Of course I'm busy. My wife knows I'm busy. I'm busy like crazy. I'm sure she's busy in her own right. But I'm not going to say, hey, I'm busy. It was something we talked about early on in the relationship because it was something we both said. We said, I would love to talk to you today, but I'm busy. If you get busy or too busy for the people you love is going to dissipate. You need 90 minutes of communication a week minimum. That's minimum for a healthy, strong relationship. So now we understand that we have to be present in our relationships. We have to be present in our careers or our physical fitness. We have to be paying attention to that. But many people, they kind of put it for another day, put it for the future, right? Or maybe they look back at their past. Oh, I used to be in such a good shape. I don't know what happened to me. It's so much work to get back into my shape. Yeah, sure. It's a lot of work, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it. It doesn't mean that you can't win again. And I encourage people to go on that journey again if you lost. It might not be the same journey that you went on when you were younger, of course, because your body changes and your mind has evolved and developed, hopefully. So it's going to be different. It might be easier. It might be more challenging depending on your current circumstance. At the moment, can be enough to change your trajectory to either the life that you want or the life that you don't want. There's a saying about, if you show me what you do in a day, I will show you your future. Because if you can look at what a person does in your day, you can say, hey, I can see what you're going to happen. If you keep eating all these cheeseburgers, you're going to get fat, right? There's no way around it. Maybe when you're young, you can get away with it for a little bit, but it wreaks havoc on the body. If you keep going to the gym, eventually you're going to get fit. And I'm talking about you go to the gym, not just to go in the gym and say, I went to the gym today. I'm talking about that there was an effort in the action of doing something is going to get you the results that you're looking for as long as it's in the direction that you need it to go. Because if you're going to the gym and you're over here, let's say you're doing cardio all the time, right? Sure, you're going to lose some weight. Maybe you might get toned and build your leg muscles, but what about your upper body? Are you lifting weights also? So we need both components. We need the cardio and we need the weightlifting and the weight training. It's not just, well, let's do one, even though people, they have preferences. I love lifting. When it comes to cardio, that's a different story. Now I mix in my cardio here and there, right? So in between my sets, I'll jump rope, mountain climbers. I just don't like being on the treadmill for 30 minutes. It's just weird to me. It feels like, okay, what am I doing here on this treadmill for 30 minutes? Now, I will go on the treadmill if I have a bunch of emails or some messages or something. I say, this is the perfect time to hit two birds with one stone. I'm going to do my emails while I'm walking. And I make sure I'm not running or anything, so I'm getting too distracted and I fall and I get hurt and then I can't go to the gym. Not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, how can I make the best of this moment? How can I get ahead in a sense? Well, sometimes the moment is almost slippery. Like you're trying to hold on to it and sure enough, you can't. Sometimes you might want to run away from that moment, because it might not be pleasurable. Maybe you want to do something else. How many people, I'm not sure if you can relate, but on Friday, you're like, I can't wait to go home. Guess what? It's 9 a.m. in the morning and you're over here saying that you want to go home. You just started your day. So are you going to forgo 8 hours of your life because you're so focus on future. When you're off from work, 5 p.m., happy hour, party time. Yeah, sure. I understand it's going to be something you can look forward to. But when you take away that discipline from your work and your focus from your work suffers. And you might think that, how's my work going to suffer? I'm still doing the same thing and I'm getting the work done. Maybe I got a promotion. Sure, right? How long can you do that? How long can you be absent in life and appreciate it? How long? It doesn't work that way. Many people who climb the corporate ladder, they forego their families. They say, I'm going to sell my soul essentially, and I'm going to work all these hours. And eventually when I make all this money and I reach this high level status in my company or in the company, I'm going to be happy. But yet those same people are coming to me for coaching. They need help with fulfillment. So they have forgoed the moment thinking that the future was going to be more promising. And now they're looking at the moment that they're currently in to find fulfillment. One of the things I struggle with is I have a family, right? I have 2 kids, wife, got my mom, my dad, brother, sister, right? And I think, life is just moving so quick. Before you know it, the kids are going to be off and gone and they're going to start their own life. I remember I was talking to my father a couple of weeks back and he was talking about it happened so quick. And he says one of the mistakes that he made was he wasn't present enough. He said he felt like he wasn't present enough because he said before I knew it, one of my sons was walking out with his dog and moving to Texas, and that's me. And I was like, whoa, that's an eye-opening experience because as much as we will love for them to grow up when they're younger, I can't wait till they're potty trained, or I can't wait till they walk, or I can't wait till they go to school, or I can't wait until they can make their own food or take care of themselves and I don't have to get a babysitter, right? These little things that happen in our mind, take us away from the moment when we hold them and we care for them. We change their diapers, right? It might seem like a huge burden at the time or inconvenience, but it's something that you look forward to when you're a grandparent. And I can see that with my parents and my in-laws. And it's almost like they're in their element. Something is like they found something that they lost. It's like something was taken from them and they finally got it back and there's joy once more in their mind, in their hearts. They're present. Even though I want to go out and I want to make a bunch of money and I want to do all these keynotes and I want to basically leave my family for weeks at a time, maybe months sometimes to go do tours and things along those lines. I don't. It's not because I can't. It's because I understand that the moments that I have with them are fleeting so quickly. They're growing so fast. And a month time, if you don't see your kid and you look at them, they're so different. Look at pictures from when they're newborns to 1 month to 3 months to 6 months to 1 year. They're so different. And imagine yourself walking away or leaving them to go to a job or a career or calling. Before you know it, they're like, who are you? It's almost heartbreaking for those people who have to do it. They do it for good reason, right? They want to take care of their family. They might be living in a moment when they're going off and doing things, these things, and maybe they're calling every single day, every eve, but it's not the same about being present. Because this article that I wrote, The Power and Significance of the Present, is talking about not only the moment, but physical presence, mental presence. And so when we're looking at this article, I talk about so many wonderful things in here besides the aspect of being present, as I was just saying. We have to understand that there is an emotional attachment to the things we do in our life. If you do not do something, it's because you're not emotionally attached to it, right? Now, you might say, I'm going to work. I'm not emotionally attached to go to work. Well, you might hate work. That's an emotion. But what's happening typically with work is I have to do this to sustain the life that I like, the life that I love, maybe. So I can have my internet, so I can have my phone, so I can have my food. I don't want to be homeless, or whatever your excuse is for working. Maybe that's it. Now, there's going to be some people, of course, who find fulfillment in their work, right? There's the passion, right? They love doing what they do. These people are spending their moment, right? And in the job, essentially being fully present. And it's difficult to say, well, if someone doesn't like their job, should they keep on doing it? Well, I'm not going to say either yes or no, because that's a personal decision. For me, if I didn't like a job, I would stay in it if I needed the money for my family or something along those lines. Now, if I did not have a family, if I did not need money and it was just myself, I wouldn't mind living outside or going camping. I like camping. So it might be a huge inconvenience, right? My whole lifestyle would change. Maybe I'm, you know, having 2 or 3 roommates or something along those lines, living in the ghetto or whatever. And it might seem like I'm taking 100 steps back. But for me at the time, it would say, okay, how can I level up once more, right? How can I get to where I would like to be? Because I am not afraid to take steps back if I need to. If you are a person that says, I have gone this far, I'm going to keep on going, there's going to be many holes in how you view your situation, because it's more challenging when you're trying to be present, when your mind is so bogged down with every little factor of what life is and entails, your past, your future, all the worries, all the insecurities and doubts that you have. It might seem like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to focus on what I need to focus on, but it doesn't work. Why? Why does the focus that you try to give yourself or the motivation you try to give yourself, we're at the pivotal time when many people, they give up on their New Year's resolutions. Why? Because they realize that it's more challenging, it's more difficult to progress in life than it is to stay stagnant. They realize it's more difficult to remain uncomfortable than to stay in comfort. So many people, they stay in their comfort zone and they don't grow. They are not looking at the present moment for what it can bring them. They're not utilizing it to the maximum potential. So they just basically say, you know what? Today is Monday. Today is Tuesday. And I have to remind myself, what day is it? And thank God, I have a phone with all the calendar stuff, because if it's not on the calendar, I'm going to forget. That's just the way it is. Everything has to be in the calendar, even family stuff. Like, it has to be on the calendar for me. It's just the way my mind is right now. I have a million different things, not a million, but it's like 1,000. I have so many things that I'm like trying to do and think and juggle. And I'm like, okay, if it's not on the calendar, I'm going to forget. It's going to slip through. There's something else that's taking precedence. And it's almost like, am I paying attention in these moments of being busy and of chaos? Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. And so sometimes I have to take a step back and say, you know what? This chaos is nice. This moment is nice. Even though I have a full schedule, everything is packed, jam-packed, I'm going to appreciate this. I'm going to pick up my kid. I'm going to spin him around. I'm going to throw him in the air. I don't care what's next. That moment matters the most to me. And so in this article, I give some tasks that is really powerful, or some techniques is a better word. It's the Promodoro Technique. And this technique talks about how you can utilize different segments of time in order to create focus in your life, to be more present in the moment so you can do things. I did this technique quite a bit when I started my business, when I started getting into blog writing, podcasting, etc. But the good thing about this technique is it becomes a habit. So you don't necessarily have to have a timer, and you don't have to follow this step by step. It's almost like you're a trained professional and you can just kind of breeze through this with no issues. So again, this is a time management technique, and it basically encourages focus work in short intervals, 25 minutes, and then you take a 5-minute break. These, short segments are perfect for the mind, even in our era of TikTok brain. And TikTok is, one of those, platforms that's always going to be under scrutiny, very similar to what Twitter is and X was, or what X is and Twitter was, because time is going to move and we're going to keep on doing it. So our day can be made up into segments, because if you can get something done in 25 minutes, that would take you an hour. That is a huge bonus in how much time you can gain in your day. But it doesn't happen easily, right? Because if it takes you an hour typically, what do you need to do in order to get it done in 25 minutes? Typically, it's taking away distractions. I remember Obama. You don't have to like the guy. Obama, Barack Obama. He was writing his book or something, and what he did to write his book was he went into a cabin or something. He went on vacation, and he sat down and he wrote his book. And he said, okay, I just can't have distractions right now for whatever it was. I don't know how many days, I can't recall, but he basically said, I'm just going to write this book and I'm going to get it done. And I'm just going to make sure there's no distractions. I'm just going to be 100% in this. Now, could you imagine the president being fully immersed in a book and not the country? Of course not. I'm sure he still had things he had to deal with. There was things that came up that he had to address. And I'm sure when he got back, his plate was full. But it doesn't necessarily mean that he was not present. He was not looking at the future when he was retired from being president, and he didn't have to worry about all these problems. It was the task at hand that he was, more focused on. And so presence is that you see everything that's around you. And I remember this scene in Peaceful Warrior. It's a movie, but it's also a book where the gymnast, Dan Millman, he goes out with his mentor. He calls him Socrates. And he goes to the park with him. And he was in a rush that day. He had to get to practice and training, and he was so caught up in everything. And Socrates essentially just said, you are not paying attention. Your mind is full of garbage. And so he threw him off the bridge or something, right? So it was like a bridge into like a little stream. And during that time, Dana's screaming, oh my God, I'm falling, right? And then he comes up, is like, why you throw me in there? And he wasn't paying attention, essentially, what Socrates was trying to tell him. And then Socrates says, pay attention, you see. And he looked around, he saw people in the park laughing, kissing, dogs playing, the leaves moving. Everyone was a living life. You can live that same life or very similar to that. Just because you are going through something, it doesn't necessarily mean that no one else is going through it. It doesn't mean that people don't recognize and might understand what you're going through. This is something for you to experience, right? The present moment is yours. And if you can share it with someone, then it could be yours together. But most of the time in life, it's going to be your moment. When I'm with my kids and they're running around and they're screaming and they're laughing and they're smiling, that moment is not for them, it's for me. I know it might seem like they're having a good time and they're being kids and stuff like that, but when you look at that moment, it makes you understand something, that one day they're not going to be doing that. One day they're not going to be running around. They're not going to be screaming. They're going to be locked up in their room saying, Dad, leave me alone. Mom, leave me alone. Just want to be left alone, right? They're going to do their homework. They're going to the growing stages. And of course, there's methods for you to get through that, but today is not necessarily a parenting episode, but it's an episode for you to understand that being present has the power. Because when you're present with them when they're younger, they will be more present with you during the teen years, even when they are past teens and they're adults. One of the reasons why kids don't see their parents is because the parents kind of threw their kids off to the wild. They say, all right, be a man, be a woman, go to school, do this. Then I might see you for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so the family bond dissipates, and you need to have some glue factor in the family. You need to have a matriarch or a patriarch or whoever's going to be that factor. When they're gone, you will see the family dynamic shifts. People kind of go their own way. They start to create their own life, their own empire, their own nation, whatever you want to consider it. They're present, but they have lost the fact of everything that was the totality that made them who they were. their grandmas and grandpas, their dads and moms, brothers and sisters, uncles and aunts, friends from high school, elementary, even college maybe. And it all just kind of gets thrown into a closet for us never to think about, because that is the past. We're not necessarily going to be focusing on the past and being locked in it, but the past can teach us. It can be, one of our greatest books that we have read in the sense of what life is. It's a story. Your story's unfolding. It's being told day by day. Sometimes you might be caught up in what's going to be coming next in your story. Sometimes you're going to be caught up with things that have happened in the past. I can't believe that happened. But all in the meanwhile, you're not paying attention to the words that are being read to you and being written on that page that you're reading. You might ask, well, how can I begin to focus more? How can I begin to get my mind to say, hey, let's look at how I can structure this to look at the moment rather than to look at the future only or to look at the past only. And this article right here is a wonderful read, talking about the power and significance of presence. I talk about the method, as I said, the Promodoro Technique, and you can use that in order to start your process to getting more segments in your day. Because if you want to win your day, it's not so much of, okay, you have to win the morning and win the afternoon and win the evening. You just have to be intentional with how you spend your time. Time is almost one of these frivolous things that people are just taking for granted. They think that time is this infinite resource. It's not. Time is going to be constantly moving, whether you like it or not. And sometimes time can be wasted if it's not used to be fully intentional in where we are. But then sometimes time can be used to slow down and to pay attention to the things that one day you might look back and say, you know what, those were the good times. Those were the good moments. And it's not so much being caught up on past friends or past family members. It's about doing what needs to be done today. How can you make today the most meaningful, that's going to create the most impact, and that's going to bring you the most fulfillment and joy? Presence is a powerful tool if you can learn how to master it.